Hey guys, welcome to Pages with Sidra. Today we are going to start episode 714 of I Have 90 Billion Licking Gold Coins. If you haven't watched the previous chapters, make sure to check them out on my channel. Now, without any delay, let's dive into the chapter. Chapter 1252. Have you really given up? My heavens! Everyone, hurry to the Ice-Fire Domain Divine Monument. The Divine Son of Shangqiu has successfully mastered the Ice-Fire Domain to 100%. Not only has he opened the passage into the fifth sacred land, but he's even broken through to the galaxy level during his enlightenment. Amazing! Shangqiu's Divine Son obtained a spirit grass heart, and with his unparalleled talent, being able to break through to the galaxy level and master the power of a domain was only natural. As all the prodigies around discussed in excitement, Chen Yuan finally arrived late with Huolinger, the Violet Orchid Goddess, and Lan Xingyue. What met their eyes ahead were 108 towering domain divine monuments. Each stood about 50 meters tall, 30 meters wide, and 2 meters thick. On their surfaces were carved incomparably profound lines, forming one rough, yet mystical pattern after another. These 108 monuments each corresponded to one of 108 different domains. The Time Domain, Space Domain, Five Elements Domain, Yin-Yang Domain, Ice-Fire Domain, Gravity Domain, Thunder Domain, Storm Domain, Life Domain, Death Domain, God of Slaughter Domain, Darkness Domain, Light Domain, Swamp Domain, Golden Sword Domain, Plant Domain, Heavenly River Domain, Heavenly Fire Domain, Earth Domain, Speed Domain, and so on. Some of these monuments had hundreds of prodigies attempting enlightenment before them, while others had almost no one, some not even a single person trying to comprehend them. Different domains meant different powers, and their effects were entirely different. For example, the Time Domain. Not a single person was trying to comprehend it, not because they didn't want to, but because they simply didn't have the talent. For a galaxy-level expert to try comprehending the Time Domain was far too forced. To control time itself, speed it up, slow it down, pause it, or even reverse it, was a divine ability that even universe overlords struggled to master. Only at the universe venerable level could one barely attempt it. The time-wheeled Divine Son, who wielded the law of time, was said to be able to pause an entire region of space-time for 1 second in battle. In a clash between masters, a single second was enough to decide life or death. Such power inspired deep awe. Facing an opponent like that, even if you were stronger, he might need only a single second to kill you. In that 1 second, he was invincible. However, though the law of time was heaven-defying, every use of it brought backlash from time itself. Thus, it was rarely used lightly. These domain divine monuments contain the mysteries of the universe. For us inheritor divine sons, comprehending them is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I think I already know my choice. I'll comprehend the gravity domain. Violet Orchid Goddess said firmly. Then I'll study the God of Slaughter domain. Lan Xingyue decided. I'll take the Heavenly Fire domain. Huolinger declared. You all go ahead. I'll think it over a bit longer, Chen Yuan said, frowning. He was having trouble deciding. He could choose from 6 domains he already had affinity with: space, heavenly fire, thunder, water, gravity, and God of Slaughter. Or should I just try the Time Domain? See if I have the talent? After all, trying doesn't cost anything. With one hand behind his back, Chen Yuan strolled toward the Time Domain monument, as if taking a leisurely walk. Isn't that Yin boss? What's he doing? Trying the Time Domain. As far as I know, even the time-wheel Divine Son, who has already mastered the law of time, only entered the fifth sacred land by comprehending the Space Domain Monument. This so-called Supreme Time Domain has been attempted by many inheritor Divine Sons, and without exception, all have failed. And there's another danger. Comprehending the Time Domain will cause time backlash, silently stealing your lifespan. If you comprehend for 1 second, you lose 10,000 seconds. 1 minute, you lose 10,000 minutes. 1 year, 10,000 years. The damage is invisible but lethal. The group of prodigies whispered among themselves, some with a mocking tone. Many peerless geniuses had been humiliated before this monument. Once, a particularly stubborn inheritor Divine Son lost hundreds of thousands of years of lifespan attempting it. nearly dying on the spot. By the time he realized, it was already too late. What is this? Feels like a heavenly book. I can't understand a thing. Chen Yuan scratched his head. He carefully examined the monument from top to bottom, left to right, front to back, and understood absolutely nothing. Just as he was about to give up, suddenly, an indescribable sensation welled up within him. The world before his eyes seemed to change. Everything in heaven and earth appeared to slow dramatically. It felt as if time itself had frozen. But on closer inspection, it wasn't frozen, just moving so slowly it might as well have been, perhaps slowed by 10,000 times. So this is the wonder of the time domain. At this speed, even a universe overlord would be easy for me to kill. Wait, did I just succeed in comprehending the time domain? Ding. Detected. Host is attempting to comprehend the time domain. Host's personal time has been accelerated 10,000 times by the domain monument. To master the first layer at 100% requires 1 million enhancement points. Ding. Host's balance is insufficient. Unable to master. Please abandon comprehension. The system's cold voice rang in his mind. Only then did Chen Yuan realize he hadn't actually succeeded at all. He was merely under the influence of the monument. Just giving up like this feels wasteful. I might never get another chance like this. Ding. Host may spend 1,000 enhancement points to imprint the monument's patterns into your mind for future study. You can do that? Chen Yuan was stunned. He couldn't take the monuments with him. But if he imprinted all 108 monuments' diagrams into his mind, wouldn't that be like owning a massive, undeveloped treasure vault? Once he had enough enhancement points in the future, he could master them all. Strange, why can't I remember the monuments' diagrams at all? Even if I try to draw them, I can't. One inheritor divine son muttered with a frown. Chapter 1253, each one extraordinary. After stepping out of the time domain, Chen Yuan turned and walked toward the spatial domain divine steel. The spatial domain was also one of the top-tier domains. Since Chen Yuan had already comprehended the laws of space to the second level, observing the spatial domain divine steel now felt significantly easier. The intricate patterns on the steel depicted the methods of mastering the spatial domain in exquisite detail. With just a single glance, he felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over his mind, washing away the fog. A sudden, profound clarity about space bloomed in his heart. It was as though his understanding and control over space had opened up in an instant. A wave of spatial domain power spread out from his body. Clearly, his ability to control the space around him was steadily growing stronger. But this strength was still far from enough. To completely master the first layer of the spatial domain would still take at least several months. Within arm's reach, this skill is clearly a practical application of the spatial domain, which means, in truth, I've already grasped the way to use it. It's just that my level of mastery is still far too low. If one could push spatial domain mastery to the extreme, theoretically, it could reflect every attack from the opponent. You could even create spatial walls, unmatched in defense, or spatial blades, sharp enough to cut through anything in the universe, or spatial bindings, to completely trap and restrict enemies from escaping. The applications of the spatial domain and spatial laws were incredibly broad. Attack, defense, escape, speed, control, every aspect could be taken to the pinnacle. Even just within the Tao of space, there were likely dozens of possible directions for development, and each path, once pursued deeply, could consume an entire lifetime without being fully mastered. Chen Yuan's mind felt as if it had been thrown wide open. The more he learned about the Tao of space, the more he realized that what he grasped now was just a sliver, not even the outer skin of the subject. At best, he was like a beginner-level student. His knowledge was painfully shallow. System, how many enhancement points will it take for me to fully master the first layer of the spatial domain? Ding. To reach 100% mastery of the first layer of the spatial domain will cost 10,000 enhancement points. For the second layer, 100,000 enhancement points. For the third layer, 1 million enhancement points. Hearing this, Chen Yuan let out a breath of relief. The spatial domain was clearly much cheaper than the time domain. This should be related to how far he had already progressed in comprehending the Tao of space. The patterns on the divine steel clearly go beyond the first layer. They even touch upon the second and third layers. But for most Saint Sons, their goal is just the first layer. The higher layers may be visible, but they're too difficult to understand and master. So in the end, people have no choice but to give up. But I have the system. I can imprint them directly. All 108 domain divine steals would only cost me 108,000 enhancement points. System, begin imprinting the spatial domain divine steal. Ding. Imprinting, imprint complete. Deducting 1,000 enhancement points. Now, Chen Yuan had two choices. First, directly use enhancement points to quickly master the first layer of the spatial domain. Second, take his time cultivating and comprehending on his own. He still had a huge stockpile of bright heart grass, which would make his comprehension speed far greater than that of other Saint Sons. The difference was that the first method would burn through enhancement points. Forget it, I'm not in a rush anyway. Better to imprint it first, and then slowly comprehend it myself. Besides, Princess Xingyue, Goddess Silent, and Hualing, I haven't even mastered it yet. I can wait until they've succeeded, then do it myself. Someone nearby suddenly called out. Hey, look, Smoke Boss is coming out of the spatial comprehension grounds again. No way. Didn't he already reach 100% mastery of the first layer of the laws of space? Theoretically, that should give him an edge in mastering the spatial domain. Even though domain power and law power are different, they ultimately lead to the same goal. If you ask me, maybe Smoke Boss is out of tricks. He put on such a dazzling performance before. Maybe he took some kind of forbidden medicine that burned up his potential. Now that it's gone, he's just done. Saint Sun Giant Tiger's analysis kinda makes sense. Chen Yuan left the spatial domain area and headed toward the 5 elements domain divine steel. 5 minutes later, he came out again. Then he walked toward the thunder domain divine steel. And so it went. While the other Saint Sons were deeply focused on meditating before their chosen domain steals, immersed in thought and utterly concentrated, Chen Yuan was wandering around like a tourist. He truly went and examined every single divine steel in detail. And then that was it. He was basically just looking for nothing. Each of the 108 domain divine steals got only 5 minutes of his time. With that kind of scattered focus, what could you possibly comprehend? What is Smoke Boss even doing? Wandering around for over 10 hours, looking at every steal. Don't tell me he's planning to master all 108 domains. Huh, you're joking, right? That's impossible. Even the peerless monster Gu Yuezi, who ascended to the 8th sacred ground, only mastered 9 domain powers. And that's already considered freakishly inhuman. And honestly, mastering too many isn't necessarily a good thing. It means you'll have to divide your time researching different paths. Sure, you'll be stronger at the same level, but you might have spent that time reaching the second layer of a domain instead, while everyone was gossiping and making their guesses. Suddenly, from the heavenly flame domain divine steel, a column of blazing red light shot into the sky. A terrifying heavenly flame domain erupted instantly. Boundless heavenly fire flooded the heavens, making the world tremble. From within, a fire phoenix's phantom soared upward. It's the fire spirit goddess. She hasn't even been at the heavenly flame divine steel for a full day, yet she's already mastered the first layer to 100%. Her talent, it's unbelievable. Even Fire Cliff, the chief disciple of the fire god Palace, also studying the heavenly flame domain, and with 6 bright heart grasses, still took 3 whole months to master it. And she did it in 1 day? That's absurdly monstrous. Half an hour later, another divine light blasted into the sky. Heavens, it's the Xylan goddess. She's mastered the gravity domain in just 1 day as well. Fire Spirit Goddess and Xylan Goddess were already peerless prodigies. I heard they recently broke through to the galaxy realm, and on top of that, they both consumed bright heart grass infused with the spirit of grass, greatly boosting their comprehension. Given that, mastering an entire first layer domain in a day isn't all that surprising. Boom. Before the crowd's words even faded, a blood-red divine light burst into the sky. That's it for today's chapter recap. If you enjoyed the breakdown, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated with the latest manga, manhwa, and manhwa recaps. Got thoughts on today's chapter? Drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear your take on the story. See you in the next one. Until then, keep turning the pages.